you guys sign in?
Yeah. Yep.
All right, how's everybody doing tonight?
Good.
Good. You guys ready to learn about some advanced nutrition and detox?
Yes.
Yeah, it's gonna be a good night. Yeah, I'm Dr. Jake Tucker for anybody tuning in on Facebook. You guys have been here for 5 weeks now, so it's pretty cool. So glad to see you guys sticking around. I know tonight, because it's getting a little colder, we're probably gonna have a little bit lighter crowd. It's a little darker, a little bit earlier. I also know we have a few stragglers as well, so if they sneak in, yeah, that's okay. We'll let you in. But yeah, definitely I'm putting these out there on Facebook now that we're getting a little closer to the end. I do want people to have access to these as they go through everything. So if you're seeing something that somebody else needs to see, please share this. Please share this content on Facebook or on YouTube, wherever you like to share the information, because so many people need to hear this, right? Is the world going crazy? The world's going a little crazy.
Right.
And we do have to provide some sanity for people. This stuff makes sense. Your immune system should not be complicated. Maybe the explanation that's out there is a little complicated, but I like to say that our God is a God of logic and reason, and wants us to be able to understand what we're dealing with. It doesn't mean that it's necessarily easy, right? And sometimes because it's so countercultural, it makes it a little bit harder, but it's still there. It's there when we look for it. And the more that we learn through history, the more that this stuff looking back just makes more and more sense. So I want to be there for you guys. I want to give you guys those resources. So let's go ahead and flash back to last week, and in doing so, kind of flashback on the whole 5 weeks that we've done so far. So week number 1 obviously was the introduction. We covered all 5 essentials very broadly and how it relates to the nervous system, but it was mainly about that philosophy and how badly we get the philosophy when it comes to health. And if you get the philosophy on health wrong, it almost doesn't matter the practice, because philosophy is a roadmap, right? Now, I used to be in Florida, so I would always give the example of Miami. You get on I-75 and you start heading north. I don't care where from. If you head north on I-75 and you're not in Miami, are you ever going to get to Miami? No. It doesn't matter how good of intentions you have, how much you desire for that to be the case. That philosophy, that map, that roadmap, it informs the direction in which you're going to go. And so that's where we come to this. And this is probably the most important thing I can ever draw for you, is the health chart. And this is something that you should all learn how to draw yourselves. It's not hard. But basically what we do in our culture, right, is we wait until we feel a symptom to do anything about our health. And unfortunately, for that to do anything for you, you have to lose 40% function for you to feel a symptom. And then culturally, instead of addressing the cause of the problem, we get a medication. And the medication is designed to what? Cover up the symptom, not treat the cause of the problem, cover up the symptom. Because, right, you have heart disease. Was that due to the lack of lisinopril or the statin that the doctor or God failed to give you at birth? No, it's probably due to the fact that you really like cheeseburgers and French fries and pizza and ice cream, and you didn't like going to the gym, and you go on and on and on, and eventually it leads to this symptom. And then we go back, and the blood pressure is not any better because all we did is cover it up with lisinopril. And then we go back, and now we're on 2, 3, 4 medications, and then we go back, and then we don't make it back because now we're in the emergency room with a heart attack. number one most common cause of heart, or number one most common symptom of heart disease is the heart attack itself. And so waiting until we feel a symptom is setting ourselves up for failure. How do you want to know? Well, let's just look at the numbers again, right? Most expensive healthcare system in the world. Not because we just overcharge for everything, which we do, but we have the best doctors, the best facilities, the best access to these medications, the best laws to protect our citizens from not being able to get medically necessary care. And yet, in spite of doing it the best, our results are the worst. We're 37th out of 37 industrialized nations when it comes to health and the healthcare system, 72nd overall. And so we got to start thinking about this differently. And that's aiming at health and function. The definition of what is health? What is health is the ability of the body to heal and the ability of your body to function. We have to take responsibility for that though, right? Because our system, our culture are aimed at what? At the symptoms and this misguided idea that if we just continue to treat symptoms and treat signs of disease, that the disease itself will go away. Not realizing that when you aim at disease and you aim at symptoms, you're just going to build that up more and more. So we have to know what controls health. And that was what we covered last week. Hi, Cheryl, come on in. Actually, let's grab a chair for her. You can be right up front. Yeah. Yeah, it's a nice chair, but it folds oddly. Yeah. So the nervous system is the one system in your body that controls all function, right? Heart to beat, lungs to breathe, cut on your leg to heal, you sever the nerves at the brainstem or at the spinal cord. What happens to those things? Do they ever function? No, they just all die. They wither up and die. And we all know this, and we kind of, a lot of us learned this in grade school. Some of us learned it in college. Some of us learned it in grad school. But ultimately, we ignore this once we get into the practical side of health. So that we have to go back to that, right? And that's all chiropractic is it's functional neurology. It's taking that function and applying it, taking that nervous system and knowing what we know about the nervous system and how it functions electrically, how it functions mechanically, and optimizing that so that at its root, at the basis, at the foundation of your health, you have a state of capacity for 100% function, or at least as close to it as we can get electrically, chemically, biomechanically, right? And so that's what all last week was about. And you guys got to hear me nerd out about that a little bit. You guys didn't if all you did was watch from home because the video cut out after 30 minutes. But that's all right. That's the benefit of being here, right? You be here, you get to see all this stuff. So what we're doing today is we're actually diving into the next level. I want to start off with detoxification. And the reason why we're starting with detoxification is because when you're talking about things that interfere with the nervous system, you can break it down into three broad categories. And we've covered these at various levels throughout our time here. The first would be thoughts. I label these as 3 T's if you're taking notes. Thoughts, number one, and that can be stress, that can be your mindset on health, that can be lack of sleep, that can be any number of things. But when you're talking about the definition of health, it's what? Mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual. You can wrap up at least 3 of those in just that thought category. And we can go ad nauseum on this. Some of you may need to talk to a counselor about some of those things because they would be best equipped to help deal with some of those. The next one would be traumas. And we talked a lot about that last week because it's very easy to correlate physical traumas with injuries to the spine that'll interfere with the nervous system, right? You have a fall on a trampoline, you get in a car accident, slip and fall while shoveling the driveway. Those things will jar the spine out of position, and if not properly taken care of, will degenerate out of time. Even more traumatic to the spine are the long-term postures that we hold. And I showed you a couple examples of x-rays of people that didn't have traumas at a macro level, but at a micro level, the things that they were doing every single day. And it's actually the misalignments in my spine are a reflection of the micro traumas that I put into it. The things that I do every single day. And most of you are the exact same way. The things that you're doing on a daily basis reflect what's going on in your spine and the subluxations that you're experiencing in your spine. But the last one, the last T, is actually toxins. Toxins can actually create a physical manifestation and a neurological interference in the spine, in the spinal cord, in the spinal column. And so I wanted to jump into this right away. So first off, we're exposed to hundreds of toxins daily. So you guys tell me, where are you exposed to toxins? We've covered some of this already.
Food.
Food.
Also with cleaning products.
Yeah, food and cleaning products, huge. What's that?
Face products.
Face
Yep.
products,
Yeah.
yeah, beauty products in general,
Yeah.
absolutely.
No kidding.
Cleaning, absolutely. What's that?
Places we go.
Places we go, yeah. How about HVAC systems? Yeah, what's circulating around inside when we're running the heat? And it's not exchanging the air with the outside very often, at least if you want an efficient system. How about the carpet that we have?
Yep.
You know, what's growing underneath that padding? You know, or behind our drywall. Yeah, if you ever had a leak back there and didn't replace the drywall, yeah, very likely that's in there as well. Any other thoughts on where these come from? Oh, yeah, water and plastic containers, right? We'll get into some of that as well. How about cookware?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Teflon.
yeah, Teflon, and we'll get all this stuff. How about the silver fillings in our mouth?
Yeah.
Yeah. Medication could actually be considered a toxic exposure as well. You know, you give me a whole bottle of aspirin. What am I going to do? Probably vomit, hopefully,
Yeah.
because if I don't, what are they going to have to do at the ER? Pump my stomach.
Yeah.
And so sometimes those micro exposures to toxins can build up when it's not a macro exposure as well. So a lot of different things that we're exposed to on a daily basis. And how do they affect us? Well, sometimes we don't see it. Sometimes we do. Really, a toxin can create just about any symptom that you're experiencing. Why? Because it can interfere with your central nervous system and the expression of health and life and vitality. Come on over, Chris. There we go. We get to sit next to Cheryl. Yeah, front row for the latecomers, right?
If it wasn't for the road closed.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
I
that's
know.
right.
56 and 48. Yeah.
So really, anything can be toxic. And I don't want to stand here and tell you that it's possible to live a toxic-free life. Just impossible. Like we knew that from the beginning. And so when God designed us, he created us with various organs to deal with toxins. The liver, the kidneys, your skin, the sweat glands in your skin is also an organ for that. This tube that we call digestive system is literally designed to just push toxins right out of our body. And when it can't, your body will actually, anything that it doesn't recognize is what to do with it. It's like an artificial chemical that wasn't around at creation because we've manufactured it into being. Your body will actually take it, if it can't push it out, and put it in fat cells as far away from anything important as possible. It's pretty cool. I mean, we've got a really intelligent, central nervous system. I mean, this innate intelligence that God gave us. But if we get too many, if we saturate the fat cells, if we overload our digestive system, if things build up in the liver too much, we get too much in our food, too much in our house dust, too much in the mold, too much pollen content, too many exposures to our allergies, eventually this bucket it starts filling over top. And that's when you get too much exposure. And I prefer to think of this bucket as actually a funnel. It's got a big side at the top. We can handle a lot coming in. But if you pour in more than what comes out, the stuff that comes out the top are the symptoms. Anything. You guys name some symptoms that you can think of that deal with toxicity. Sneezing, coughing, rashes, headaches, yeah.
Getting
Migraines.
sick more.
Yeah, more often it's immune suppression. How about things more chronic that get a diagnosis like
Arthritis.
fibromyalgia?
Yeah.
Yeah, leaky gut. Yeah, a lot of these things attack the gut line. And so we need to make sure that we're keeping this bucket as low as possible by either decreasing the amount coming in or increasing the amount going out. And so I'm going to teach you both tonight. So, and really, when you're looking at this, we just got out of October, which is Cancer Awareness Month, or really Politics and COVID Awareness Month. But yeah, what they found, the Journal of Pharmaceutical Research, is that 95% of cancers are due to lifestyle factors. Less than 5% of these things are due to genetics. Yeah, and we're doing all this research to try to find a cure when we know what causes it. Why don't we invest in the cause? Right? I don't know.
How much is cancer going to increase in the next 5 years because people are so paranoid about COVID?
I don't know. We'll see.
That's a rhetorical question.
Yeah, it's one of those you don't want to answer either.
Right.
Yeah.
Right? All this stuff that we're doing, making people stay home, isolate. I mean, you talk about social health and well-being. You know, you talk about, you know, microbiome and microvirome. I mean, hopefully you guys all read my email last night, but yeah, it's just nonsensical, all this stuff that we're doing. So we have to minimize our exposure first off. What does that mean? That means, number one, identifying those sources of toxicity. So you guys just did that for me. I don't have to do a deep dive on that. But yeah, like Teflon pans. What's an easy sideways move to minimize the exposures?
I like my cast iron skillet personally.
Cast iron skillet. What's another sideways move for a Teflon nonstick pan? Stainless steel. Yep. Glass. Ceramic. Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. There's a few options. I'd say copper is kind of a moderate move. If you get too much exposure to copper, it can be toxic, but every so often is not a bad thing. You know, a lot of these things. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. That's the thing is everything does. Everything does. Some just more than others. You know, it's really sad study, but they actually put birds over top, not directly over top of the stove, but just off to the side of a stove where they were cooking with Teflon pans, and the birds died.
Like the coal mining thing.
Yeah, the whole coal mining thing. We should be looking for these indicators. How about fillings, right? We know that silver fillings have a mercury amalgam in it that we've seen actually end up in people's nervous systems. We don't process mercury out well. That's one of those chemicals that passes down generationally. You know, if you have kids after a mercury exposure, your kids will very likely have that mercury toxicity as well. So instead of getting the silver fillings, what should we ask for? Porcelain fillings, right? And they even have more options now than when I was younger and was getting more fillings. It's amazing when you stop eating sugar, you stop needing fillings. Yeah. Started off my first like 12 years of life had like more than I was old, and now I don't eat sugar as often. It's like, yeah, nope, none. But I'm still paying for all the damage I did, right? Yeah, so that's a great move. Let's see, how about the aluminum that's in flu shots? What can we do instead of getting a flu shot?
Come here and learn how to
build your immune system, right? Yeah, invest in your health on the front end so that you don't have to worry about getting the flu, because who doesn't pass on the flu?
healthy people.
Yeah, healthy people that never get symptoms from it even when they're exposed. When their immune system repels it properly, builds up a proper immunity, then they don't pass that on. You know, that's just basic germ theory and terrain theory. You know, we look at these things. What are some other examples of detox or toxins that we're exposed to that seem difficult to get rid of the exposures? Pesticides, right? So let's talk about just in our own gardens, because several of us are gardeners, plant stuff around the garden. What are some of the things that we use to keep pests off?
Squishing them.
Squishing. Yeah, so it can also be a philosophy thing, right, too? Because the bugs are designed to eat the foods, and then they get the pollen, and then they go to other plants, and they pollinate it, and it gets more fruit. If all we do is constantly, kill the bugs, the pollination process doesn't happen. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. But what's that?
Yeah.
What's that one chemical that actually breaks down the shell? Borax, right?
Oh yeah.
Borax can break down the shell without actually being harmful to the human body. You can lay that around a garden bed. Yeah, I'm not a gardener. I don't know all these things. Actually, no green thumb here at all. Save my thumbs for you guys. How about that?
Diatomaceous earth.
Diatomaceous earth. That was the other one I was trying to think of.
What?
Yeah, we did that for fleas as well.
I didn't catch that.
Diatomaceous earth.
It's
Oh, okay.
phosphide.
It's really fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a powder that
This is for bugs.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
bugs. It also
Oh,
helps for
like
fleas
all
on
sorts of stuff. Like,
dogs.
yeah.
Yeah, you definitely do not want to inhale it.
Oh yeah, no.
Right.
Yeah, very bad to inhale.
Yeah.
As are a lot of
It's just like
healthy things, right? We don't sniff dirt because it's bad for our lungs. But yeah,
That's my children.
yeah, don't do that. Yeah. Yep. What's another toxin we're
Cayenne.
exposed to?
Sometimes you can use certain spices like cayenne
Yeah.
on some of your
Or
vegetables.
yeah, like so pesticides. So like, how about bug sprays? That's another toxic exposure. It has a lot of chemicals in it. Yeah.
Citronella,
Your citronella, what are some essential oils?
cedarwood, those are others.
Yeah, lemongrass, that's another one I've
Arborvitae.
used. Yeah, just a lot of different ways to keep bugs up. They don't work perfectly, but you know why? Because we were designed to get eaten by bugs when we walk through a swamp, right? Humid environments. Yeah, it's the mosquitoes' home too, and we live in this, macro environment where we're supposed to be, in there with nature. Yeah, coexisting, right? We're not just supposed to kill everything that bothers us, right? Yeah. So you minimize exposure with those sideways moves. Trying to think if I'm missing anything.
Boric
major
acid
there.
for roaches.
Yeah, boric. Yeah, there's all sorts of different things that we can use. So yeah, absolutely. We need to check our pots and pans. Look for those sideways moves with the pots and pans. Everything's going to go on sale for Black Friday. So great opportunity for you guys to switch everything over. Make some of those healthier ones. So the ones I have in my kitchen, we got stainless steel for our wedding, thank God. Yeah, that really helped. But then we buy and replace a ceramic pan probably once every 2 years or so, because they do wear out, they become stick, and then the coating that keeps them on starts leaching into food too. So you do want to get rid of that when it stops becoming non-stick. We do have the cast iron pan. If you have a glass top stove, don't use that there. That'll break it. But you can use it in the oven. We bake with the cast iron skillet a lot. You can also throw it on the grill if you want as well. So those are the ones that we have. I like grilling things as well too. That you have to be careful not to scorch the food. Anytime you blacken something on the grill, there is a carcinogen in there, so you have to look out for that as well. But grilling foods at a low temperature is actually a really healthy way to eat them. Storage containers. So we know don't use the cheap plastics, especially liquids. Don't put a tomato sauce in a plastic. You know how it changes the color of the Rubbermaid? Yeah, that's not just a one-way passover. It's also passing the chemicals from the plastic back into the food. And so you can use plastics, but you use it for dry foods because those dry foods don't leach the plastic into the food. But you do also have to be careful of canned foods because to get a proper seal on there, they have to line it with plastic. And so you do need to look for BPA-free lining. I'd say, avoid canned food and just go frozen whenever you can if you're looking for something that you need to store long-term. But that's as much just to avoid the plastic exposure as anything, because just because we know BPA is bad for us doesn't mean that the BPA-free stuff might not be bad for us 5 years from now. So we just try to stay ahead of the curve. Anything that's synthetic is going to be harder. And even the tin, if you do get to the can induce a toxic exposure. Most heavy metals will give you a toxic exposure if it makes it into your bloodstream. And so that's one of the things that we look at when we're having severe neurological function, is that toxic exposure to heavy metals. So what else is in our food? So what's not in our food? Yeah. So what's the common element among these things? Where won't you find these things?
Well, fresh produce.
Yeah, real
If
food,
it's
right?
organic, yeah.
Yeah, if you buy real food, you grow your own garden, you'll find none of this in there. These have all been implicated in a variety of things, everything from headaches to learning disorders. I mean, some of these things you will see on the packaging, some of them you won't. MSG. How many names does MSG have?
Or flavoring.
Yeah,
Sometimes it's called
flavoring, hydrolyzed, whatever. Yeah, if it says hydrolyzed, assume MSG, and so many people, even if they're not specifically sensitive to MSG, react when there's other things in combination with that. I mean, you look at just I'm going to use medication as an example, but if you do an interactions checker on medication, you do 1 or 2 together, and so you can actually do this at drugs.com if you're ever curious. It's not the end all be all. It doesn't replace your pharmacist for sure, but you take one medication, you look for the side effects, and there's a list, and sometimes it's really long, sometimes it's really short. Add 2 to that, and the list doesn't just go this one plus this one. Now there are interactions between them that create more. You add a 3rd one, and it doesn't just triple. It actually goes up by over 72 times the interactions by adding chemicals. So you start combining some of these things in an environment where you're combining foods all the time, and your digestive system is doing what it can to push things out. And now you're just asking for this chemical cocktail to start giving you symptoms. And then you go in and what do they want to do? Cover up the symptoms with another chemical, right? And so we have to look at our food, look at the quality of our food, look what we're putting in our food. Yeah, I mean, it can be anything from the dressing to the seasoning to the sprinkling of I mean, just get something real. It's going to be much better for you.
What's RBGH?
That's refined bovine growth hormone.
Oh, okay.
I can't remember if that's just the direction or if there's a word for that one. But yeah, you find that in a lot of milks. It's less so. Most even conventional milks now will say RBGH free because they start to implicate this as an estrogen member. Yeah. Yeah. Maybe it's not, been pinned as one of the causes of breast cancer, but we know that estrogen mimickers can and do. So yeah, that's another one. Yeah, don't ask me about every single one of them. I don't even know what that stands for. Yeah, it's a pretty picture. How about that? So yeah, definitely a whole food diet will lead to minimal toxin exposure. We want to look at that. We want to look at all of our products. Can you read it? Can you pronounce it? Do you know what it is? If not, do you think your body does?
No.
It's going to be harder. And there are some things where they just put the chemical name on there and it's actually a real thing, sodium chloride, potassium chloride, that's just the chemical name for things. So it's not hard and fast rule, but as a general rule of thumb, if you look on the back of the package and you're reading the ingredients and it's more than 3 long and you can't pronounce it and you don't know what it is, just stay away from it. Ask me about it, take a snapshot, send me a picture. I know some of you have done that in the past. Feel free to do that. And I may not answer right away while you're in the grocery store trying to decide whether or not you should buy this thing. But if you have it at home in your pantry and you're like, Dr. Jake, should I be donating this or tossing this or what should I do with it? And some things just aren't worth even feeding to homeless people, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to make homeless people sick, right? Let's give them real food if we're going to donate stuff. The trash can is a trash can for a reason. We put trash in there. Right? So minimal toxin exposure when we get that whole food diet. That's probably the number one thing that I can recommend. We can go through everything else and we can break down all the toxins. But if you're going to minimize your toxin exposure, we have to start by just focusing on getting those whole foods in there. Minimizing those other things. We've got Jane here. She's got her table set up for all the beauty products, and she can walk you through some of those chemicals that she doesn't have in there. That's why I brought her out here tonight. She'd love to be here anyways. But so that you guys can see some of the products that she has out there. Talk to Michelle. She'll talk to you about how to use essential oils for different things. Just to detoxify your life is the main thing. So next thing I want to jump into is nutrition. And so let's have you guys teach the class for a minute. We talked about this the last couple of weeks. I listed out the 4 keys to healthy nutrition. Now I'll give you the first word. Number 1 is we need to curb our carbs. How many pounds of sugar are we consuming in a typical year as an American?
Like 50 pounds, I don't know, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? Way too much. 263 pounds of sugar on average across the United States of America.
Each person.
Yeah, that's averaging out. So if you're not getting there, what does that mean?
Somebody else is eating an awful lot.
Someone else is eating twice that amount to keep that average. So it's pretty ridiculous how much sugar we're consuming. Now, a lot of that comes from sodas and sweetened beverages, right?
Right.
A lot of it's coming from processed foods. And so if I was going to point you towards being healthier from a curbing your carbohydrate perspective, what things might I point out removing from your diet or making a sideways move? Yeah, the processed foods and the sweetened drinks. So for soda, right? Because so many Americans love our soda. Are we like one of these weird menage states where we call it soda, pop, and Coke?
This is pop.
This is pop country. Okay,
Pop
sorry.
country,
I've lived in Michigan, I've lived in Atlanta, and now I've lived here, and it went from pop to soda and Coke, just
Coke,
depending.
Yeah.
And then down in South Florida, it's more soda, but then up here, it's pop.
Pop.
So
Yeah.
yeah, there are still some soda people though. I found some soda people. Yeah, and soda pop. There's some soda pop people too. That's different. But yeah, so instead of having your Coke, have a Zevia Cola. Instead of having your Dr. Pepper, have your Dr. Zevia. Instead of having your root beer, have your ginger root beer Zevia. And not everything is perfect. I've met some people that were like, man, that Dr. Zevia stuff tastes awful. I can't stand it. But so does cancer, right?
It really is good for cravings though,
Oh.
because it is actually really good if you
Yeah.
really want something. Because like sodas, I was a huge soda addict for years.
Yeah,
And so I don't necessarily want the soda sugar. I want the bubbles more, but I don't
Yeah.
like
You don't like
the
fresh
flat water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good
it's
mixture.
great. Yeah, no, and another,
Maybe a day.
yeah.
It's like, I just have to have my pop.
Yeah, to just get your pop. But yeah, another great thing that you can do sideways move is a soda stream. Because you don't have to add the sugar to that. You don't have to get the pre-made syrups for it. I actually will get the flavored stevia drops from Natural Grocers or not Fresh Time anymore, but yeah, sad day. But yeah,
Did they close?
yeah,
Oh,
yeah, they closed all the Nebraska stores. Sad. But yeah, no, you can just drop like some lemonade in the soda stream, the bubbly water, and now you've got bubbling lemonade or lemon lime. And now you've got Sprite or just go down the list. Red pop, the red kiwi or strawberry kiwi. All right, so curb your carbs, number one. Number two, fix your fats. You got it. Good job, Molly. So fats, are they bad for you or good for you? Trick question. Depends, right?
Some are good, some are not.
Yeah. So what are the good fats and what are the bad fats? And before you say saturated fats,
Organic.
so
Animal.
natural occurring fats are good, right?
Right.
And the synthetic processed fats are going to be the ones that are harder for your body to break down because they've already been denatured.
There's a bird on here.
Yep.
Like a motorcycle.
Thunder.
What? Motorcycle?
There's a motorcycle going on back here.
Oh, someone's cell phone?
It does sound like a motorcycle.
Maybe. Okay.
Anyway.
I mean, there's another office on the other side.
It's weird.
Yeah. All right. So natural, fresh fats. There's such things as essential fatty acids where there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate. There are essential fatty acids. Those you probably know as your omega-3, 6, and 9. And those come in a very specific ratio. The most important ratio is going to be your omega-6 to your omega-3. And that ratio should be either 1-to-1, 2-to-1, or 4-to-1, somewhere in there. And the studies all say something different. But the big thing to remember isn't that ratio. It's that if you eat a standard American diet, eat the standard fats that Americans eat, your ratio of omega-6s to 3s is over 17-to-1. So we need to take a huge step this way and get closer to that 4-to-1, 2-to-1, 1-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3s. So what are omega-3 rich foods?
Salmon.
Yeah, wild-caught salmon, wild-caught fish in general, especially lower down the food chain, the ones that are being eaten by all the big fishies. Those are the good ones to get for your omega-3s. What's another example? Sardines. Avocados are not necessarily omega-3 rich, but they are great as a healthy fat. How about chia seeds? How about flax seeds? Yeah, great sources of omega-3s. What about nuts? What are they rich in? Omega-6s. So you don't want to overdo something like almond. I know a ton of people, when they learn this, they jump right into almond butter, almond flour, almond milk, and they don't do anything about their omega-6 to 3 ratio by jumping that far because it's mostly omegas. Now, omega-6s are still necessary and important and healthy because where do those go? Those go directly to your nervous system and the cell membrane of every cell in your body. So what macro level, what should be the ratio of fats to proteins to carbs? More fats than proteins and carbs. And you can get really specific with it. If you want to go keto, you want to go 60, 70, 80% on the fat perspective, but you don't have to. You can accomplish the same things with just a low carb diet, keep those proteins a little higher, so long as you're burning through them, with exercise and movement, you can do that. So we curbed our carbs, we fixed our fats. What are we doing with our proteins?
Clean.
Yeah, we're perfecting them, right? So alliteration, right? We like to keep the piece together. Yeah, so what does that mean?
Organic.
Yeah, we want to minimize our pesticide exposure, really, by getting that as clean as possible and getting it in its environment that was intended to grow and be raised in. So when you're talking about cows, because cows are the classic example, and a grass-fed cow that's raised in a natural environment where it gets sunshine, access to fresh air in the outdoors, its ratio of omega-6 to omega-3 is 4:1 to 2:1, somewhere in there. But a corn-fed cow, especially one that's kept indoors and, do all this stuff on a feedlot, has a 17:1 omega-6 to 3 fatty acid ratio. Does that number sound familiar? Yeah, that's the American ratio. What do we like a lot?
Corn-fed
Beef, right? This is Nebraska. We love our beef. And so we do need to perfect that. And so grass-fed. And definitely when you're looking at the label, if you're buying this from the store, if you're not just finding a farmer that grass feeds and grass finishes his cow, you want 100% grass-fed to get a truly grass-fed cow. Because if all it says is grass-fed on it, it only has to be 80% grass-fed. And if it's only 80% grass-fed, what are they feeding it the last 20% of its life? Grains to fatten it up and make it taste like what you're used to. And you'll be able to tell a difference. When you cook grass-fed beef, what does the fat look like in the pan? Watery and thin. Yeah. But when you cook corn-fed beef,
It's greasy.
greasy and kind of gets yellowy and hard. Yeah, not as good. When you're eating grass-fed beef, do you leave the fat on the side or do you consume it?
Consume it.
On accident, right? Because you can't even tell the difference between the fat and the meat most of the time. And so it's just way better for you. Perfecting the protein. So I think I may have mentioned this before. Which meat source has the highest acidity level and parasite count?
Pork.
Yes, absolutely pork. And so I think that God was onto something when he told the Israelites and the Hebrews not to eat pork. And it was something that we didn't even understand then. Now that, I mean, even the FDA and USDA, they recommend that you fully cook your pork. Do not eat, rare pork. Do not eat even medium pork. Fully cook it through. Well, and what does that do? When you blacken the pork, even just the edges, it creates carcinogens. And so even just that acidity contributes to that environment that can create cancer. But then you're looking at what do the parasites do? What do dead parasites do? Even if they don't start attaching inside and growing inside you, well, they just create an unhealthy environment. And an unhealthy environment breeds what? Yeah, more unhealth, more sickness, more disease. And so we want to look at that. So the last one is trash the toxins. And we talked a lot about that already, so I won't hash that out. But where are we looking at for that? Pesticides, number one. And where's a great resource to look at when you're picking out your produce? Environmental working group. Yeah. I was expecting you guys to say clean 15 and dirty dozen list, but that's what we're looking at when we're going to that environmental working group, because they actually measure the pesticide count in the produce that we're getting from the store that's grown conventionally, not even organic. We're just looking at the conventional fruits and vegetables. And what do you expect to see on the conventional fruits of the dirty dozen? Our favorite foods, right? Because they need to produce more of them, and the more pesticides you use, the more you can produce. And so things like strawberries, things like apples, things like tomatoes, thin skin stuff, typically things that are easy to pick up and eat, grapes. I mean, yeah, I've seen just about anything on that list that I consider a favorite produce item. I mean, even spinach is on that list, and that's a really healthy food, but it's also a quick and easy go-to that if you want to make a lot of money on, you just spray with pesticides. So one of the reasons that we're looking at nutrition in the toxicity part is because when you build up a lot of toxins or you eat the wrong way, and we talked about this a lot last week, 2 weeks ago, when we were talking about cancer, is that all these things can lead to leaky gut. And I showed you some really crazy pictures here. But if you have leaky gut, guess what that does?
Causes autoimmune diseases.
Yeah, it does. In relation to toxin, though, that bucket, right? Does it increase the amount coming in, or does it decrease the amount going out?
Decreases.
Yeah, you don't have as good a filter on this stuff. You're pushing less through the system, and so it builds up quicker. This is what I need you guys to realize about leaky gut and not eating the sugars and not having the exposure to things like gluten and lectin, and especially Roundup, the glyphosate that's in the Roundup pesticide. Is when it attacks the gut lining, that's not just, oh, I got a little belly fat because I've got leaky gut, or not just a little bit of diarrhea because I got a leaky gut. No, this actually increases your toxicity exposure. So if I see someone with fibromyalgia or migraine headaches, what do I think automatically? Even without thinking about the spine at all. Leaky gut. Leaky gut, absolutely. I'm also thinking vagus nerve,
right? Because that's controlling the digestive system, and the feedback from a leaky gut is going to destroy the alignment around that vagus nerve because of the toxicity reaction that happens neurologically. It's going to distort that. But then you combine that with the things that we do every day, right? I don't need you to have leaky gut for you to have your atlas stuck in flexion and disrupt your vagus nerve because you're looking at your smartphone all day, right? Yeah, you just destroyed that yourself. I don't need you to have leaky gut for that. I don't need you to have leaky gut to give you migraine headaches because you're destroying your atlas by how you're looking at your laptop or how you're working every single day. We need to be combining all these things. It's never, ever just one thing. The symptom might go away with just one thing. But we got to remember, it's not just the symptom because the symptom only gets us there. We got to get there if we want to experience full health and life and vitality, the fullness of life. Like Jesus said in John 10:10, I've come that you may have life and have it to the full. Yeah. If you want that, we got to aim higher. We can't just aim for symptom-free anymore. And so we do that by looking at not just one cause, but all the causes. And so am I happy when the symptoms go away? Absolutely. I celebrate with you, right? Anybody gotten a high five from me before or a hug? Yeah, because we've made progress. We've seen that progress in your spine. We've seen that progress in your symptoms. But ultimately, it's a journey about rebuilding your health constantly, consistently over a lifetime. And so we continue to address what aren't we doing with fitness? What aren't we doing with nutrition? What aren't we doing with the toxicity exposure? I'm still working on this stuff. I got a root canal I got to have removed. I'm just going to get that sucker pulled out. I'm concerned about it. It was done way before I ever thought about this toxicity stuff. You have dead body parts living inside you. It's not just dead stuff. It's also bacteria and viruses propagating around a decaying piece of flesh. That's not good for anybody. And so I'm going to have my root canal pulled out. Even though I spent $1,000 to put it in there, right. I'm going to probably spend another $1,000 to get pulled out of there. Should have just pulled it in the first place, right? Yes. Yeah, get a bridge or whatever. But yeah, no, there's different stuff we're all working on. We just take it one step at a time. Don't ever feel bad because you're not doing it all. Because will you ever do it all? No, we're not. I mean, we're meant to, but we're not meant to, right? Yeah. This is a progressive. This is a journey, one step after another. Just like it took, a lot of water under that bridge to get you to this place. It's also going to take a lot of water under this bridge to get you to a new place. And it's not back to the old place. Thank God, right? It's a different place. Okay. And so oftentimes when we're dealing with all these neurological symptoms, we do go back to leaky gut right off the bat. So I did want to talk a little bit about things that we can do to protect and restore the gut. Protecting and restore the gut. And what's number one? Anytime we're talking about toxicity, what do we have to do? I think I already said this. Minimize or eliminate the exposure, right? What's creating leaky gut? If all we do is take even supplements or essential oils or healthy, clean products, but we don't eliminate the exposure to things that are damaging and actively wounding it, right? What's the first thing they do in the emergency room? They don't actually pull the knife out, but before they suture it back up, they pull the knife out, right? We have to pull the knife out at some point. And when we pull the knife out, sometimes there's more blood. Sometimes that really hurts. My oldest sister, I'm the oldest, but she's the oldest of the other four. She came down to meet Zeke before all this stuff with his breathing problems, and she was picking my brain. She's a massage therapist, really smart girl that thinks about health all the time. And she was telling me about some of the health struggles that she was having, and obviously I can point to the spine and all this stuff. But one of the things that I observed over the previous year was that as I removed dairy from my diet, that I actually just dropped weight dramatically, like 15 pounds. My resting weight went from like around 230 down to about 215 just by removing dairy. No calorie restriction, no nothing, just dairy out. Why? Because I had a sensitivity and an allergic reaction to it. It was constantly damaging my gut. And so my gut was taking in more toxins that was going to my fat cells that was building up. I didn't have a course to push that out. As I decreased the exposure, as my gut healed, my body started being able to get rid of more of that stuff, started holding a healthier weight. So she tried it. First week, you think it went well?
No.
No, it's awful. What you have, a detoxification response. If you get off of medication too quickly, you will have a detoxification response. Some of that will hit really fast because you become dependent on it. Tell you what, I am full on addicted to dairy. And there's a lot of physiology behind why you can get addicted to dairy, but I am like crack addict for it. You put a free slice of pizza in front of me, I cannot say no. I can't. You know, you put a cheesecake out there. Yeah, can't say no. You know, ice cream. I know better. I still can't say no. So I have to win this battle in the grocery store, right?
Yes.
You want to pushing that shopping cart around?
Yes.
Yeah, when I see the organic, full fat, Alden's ice cream, mint chocolate chip is my favorite.
That is good.
I just have to go to the next container that has the coconut ice cream. And maybe I'll sacrifice a little bit and have some, you know, a little bit of sugar in there. But at least I didn't destroy my gut in the process, right? Remember, we're 80-20 rule. Nobody's trying to live this perfectly, but 80% of the time, do the best that you can. The other 20% of the time, give yourself some grace. And sometimes just winning that battle, passing over the thing that you know is wrong for you, deserves a little reward, even if it's just a baby step in the right direction. So number one, we do have to eliminate that exposure. And so sometimes that means identifying those exposures. Food sensitivities and allergies aren't always obvious, are they? But there are some key signs. So some of you guys know these signs because I've gone through them with you personally. What's a big sign? One I just hinted at.
Your heart rate.
Well, that's a good test for it, right? What did you say?
Bloating.
Bloating is a good sign, right? Especially for leaky gut. But to recognize, I'd say the biggest sign that you're probably sensitive to a specific food is addiction or craving. If you are addicted to a food or you are craving a food, it's very likely that there's something in there that you're sensitive to, or you're just not having a good reaction to, because that whole physiological change that I don't even want to take the time to explain right now is going to tell you that something's wrong. Now, there are actual addictive foods, right? Things like chocolate, things like coffee, sugar does not in and of itself create leaky gut, so you get too much and you can do that. I mean, you can destroy yourself with too much coffee, and coffee is one of the most antioxidant-rich beverages out there, right? But
so which of these addictions causes leaky gut?
so
Sugar doesn't?
So sugar can, but not in and of itself. If you get like the recommended amount is about 2 grams per hour in a day, somewhere between 20 and 30 grams of sugar on a daily basis. And the sugar is 2 grams is about a packet that you pour into a cup of coffee. And so if you're doing that much, no, it's not going to create leaky gut. Not unless you already have leaky gut, and then there's the inflammation going through you. It can absolutely contribute to it. But I would look at things like dairy. I would look at things like bread, things that most Americans love and put in everything, right? Right. Those are going to be the big things, because how do you develop a sensitivity is actually through exposure. And the foods that you expose yourself to the most are going to have that sensitivity reaction through your immune system. I had a roommate do this in college. He actually he had a banana strawberry smoothie every single day. And not just like a little one, like he filled the blender up and he finished that thing every single day. Yeah, he gave himself a banana sensitivity because it was mostly banana with a little strawberry for seasoning, right? Yeah, and bananas are really high in natural sugars, not necessarily anything bad with them. They were conventional bananas, a little bit higher exposure to pesticides. And probably more importantly, conventional bananas are shipped not ripe.
No, they're green.
They're green. And I mentioned this in the past, plant lectins, they're highest in foods that aren't ripe or not in season. And just because you take it off the plant and you spray a chemical over top of it to make it ripen faster doesn't mean those lectins get to leave. And so he gave himself a banana sensitivity, not just because of bananas, but because he was overdoing all of those things every single day. And to this day, he still can't have bananas. Granted, he doesn't think my school of thought and healing, I think he probably could heal from that banana sensitivity. In fact, I think most sensitivities you can heal from, but you got to identify what the cause of it, what the irritants are, and then go through a process of healing. All right. So we do have to minimize those exposures. Food sensitivity is a big one. Allergies, another big one. If you know you're allergic to peanuts, if you know you're allergic to peanuts, please don't eat peanuts. Like, kill yourself, right?
Right.
Yeah, it's different. I mean, allergy and sensitivity are two different parts of your immune system reacting appropriately or inappropriately, just depending on the situation. But if we're identifying these things, we have to know not to consume those things if we want to avoid things like leaky gut. Another thing that we can do is we can actually let the gut rest. In the standard American lifestyle, do we allow the gut to rest very often? No, we got to get her 3 square meals a day and a snack and maybe second breakfast and maybe a brunch.
Hobbits.
Yeah, hobbits, right? Or a bunch of hobbits. A little taller maybe, but smaller feet. Yeah, it's a good life. I would like to eat that much.
Uh-huh.
But if you're constantly shoving food through, even if you're avoiding the things that you're sensitive or allergic to, does that allow the wounds that is passing by to heal ever? No.
No.
No. So if we're going to heal from leaky gut, we actually have to rest our gut. And so there's a lot of ways to do this. You can do something like intermittent fasting. Everybody here heard of intermittent fasting?
Yes.
Yeah. So you pick a period of time, and it can be any period of time. Every one of us does some level of intermittent fasting because hopefully, knock on wood, we sleep, right? And then we wake up in the morning and we break fast, right? But typically we're only getting 6 to 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Then we're eating our midnight snack right before, and then we're getting up and we're having breakfast first thing with our coffee or 5 cups of coffee like Dennis and I like to do.
Wow.
But yeah, but if we never give ourselves that opportunity to rest, we do more. Now, most people that recommend intermittent fasting recommend doing it one of 2 to 3 ways. The first would be like a 16-8, where we're fasting for 16 hours of the day and we're only eating in 8 hours a day. You can shrink that 8 hours to less. You still get your 3 squares in that time, but because it's a shorter period of time, your body has more time to rest and process out the foods that you just put into it. And so there's more time to heal. The second way of doing it is to actually pick a day of the week. And John Wesley used to do this fairly famously. He would pick a day of the week, Methodist pastor, actually founded Methodism, I think. Yeah. And he just one day a week, he would fast. And it was more religious in nature, but in doing so, you're giving yourself that full 24 hours. The other days of the week, you ate whatever you had available. Back in that time, it was more of a, give yourself the calories to survive type of thing. But if I remember, the Wesley brothers were rather thin, just from some of their pictures. So those are the 2 most common ways to do it. Now you can do variants of that. And sometimes when we're healing from leaky gut, I like to pick kind of a longer period of time to pick. I had a gal who's suffering from Crohn's disease. And so she's actually had huge chunks of her gut cut out just because of all the bleeding and nasty stuff that's going on in there. And probably saved her life to have that chunk of gut cut out, but she still has flare-ups every so often. She tells me about her diet, and I try to remember everything about every single patient.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes I'm sharp, sometimes I don't sleep, right?
Yes.
But she was mentioning what she was trying to do, and she actually did on her own, because I had taught her this for her Crohn's. She had done a bone broth fast for 3 days. She got through it, and the diarrhea and the bleeding stopped. But then she put herself back on a diet of rice and other, non-raw vegetables. But the problem is that rice is a grain, not necessarily gluten, but lectins inside that rice. It actually started to disrupt her gut and her bowels again. So I said, well, let's maybe not jump right to the grains with this. Maybe we just let's go back to that bone broth, and then let's try maybe just some steamed vegetables next time, or some of the vegetables cooked in the bone broth afterwards. And so what I have people do that are having more of those like bloody stool, diarrhea type reactions, instead of just taking 1 day or just taking 16 hours and resting, let's plan a weekend, right? So Friday, you have breakfast, you have a light lunch, and then for dinner, you have bone broth. You drink as much of that bone broth as you want. Saturday, you drink all bone broth. Sunday morning, you drink bone broth for breakfast. You have a light lunch. And then you go back to a fairly regular supper, just knowing that your appetite is going to do one thing or the other with that. But just a good way to get yourself out of a crisis mode with your digestive system and rest it. You can do the same thing with a fresh squeezed juice. You take the fiber out, right? If you blend it, the fiber is still in there. But if you juice it, it pulls the fiber out of there, and you still get a lot of the nutrients from the juice. It's higher in sugar, but it can really give you a boost to your energy, and it's probably more nutrient dense than the bone broth is. The thing I like about the bone broth is a lot of the collagen in there is actually very healing for the gut. It gives it a nice lining, even where like it kind of fills the gaps if you got leaky gut, and which is why so much of our gut stuff is based off of bone broth when we're selling those supplements. And so those are some really good ways to reset your gut. And you don't have to have those, necessarily bloody stool or diarrhea to do that. And some people just need to do it every so often. But the funny thing about intermittent fasting is I tried it for a challenge once about 2 years ago, and I just haven't gone back. Like my body just accepted it. It's like, no, this is great. Let's just do this. And so for me to eat breakfast anymore is weird and strange. Like I still eat breakfast foods. I love eggs. Like I will fry up an egg. I'll even do sprouted grain toast with it, but I eat it at 11 a.m. instead of at 5, 6, 7, 8 a.m.
Is there a good way to get there? Like for me, when
Baby
like trying
steps.
to do that, because I'm like, I try to do it and then I'm like, where am I?
Yeah.
I can't think of it. Plus I'm working and then I'm like, I can't think straight. I can't.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the hardest part is when you are busy, like I know you are at work, is making the time around being able to sit and consume food and think about food and not just like, hey, I've got my next client that I've got to get to and I don't only have this much time to eat and I got to rush, because then you put yourself in that sympathetic state like we talked about. That inhibits digestion. You're not going to process that well. That's a good way to ask for bloating and diarrhea and stuff. But if you can take baby steps with it, say, instead of eating breakfast on the way or before you get in the car, make it, pack it, and then bring it to work with you. And then eat it when you get there first day.
Okay.
Second day,
Make it a little.
plan
bit
an
more
hour
extra.
in
Okay.
that you're doing it. On the back end, do the same thing.
Okay.
So I'd say the key thing with this, with intermittent fasting, is don't eat close to bedtime. If you're going to successfully do this, don't eat close to bedtime. This is the hardest part for me.
Me too.
And
It's the worst part of
Tiffany's
the day,
laughing
yeah.
because she relates.
Yep.
But yeah,
Like scavenge.
no, it's like, kids are asleep. I can finally feed myself, right? Yeah,
Reward yourself.
yeah, reward myself. And then it's like the coconut ice cream, right?
I can't sleep when
Yeah.
I'm hungry.
No, I know. But yeah, the further away from bedtime you can get, the better. And so actually, I'd rather have you push it up away from bedtime than push it back away from sleeping on the other end.
Okay.
Ideally, you're scrunching it into the middle.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd say start at the back end, work it up, like try to get supper as close to after work as possible. The nights that Kirsten makes supper are the easiest nights to do that. But I can't rely on her to do that, so I have to plan ahead sometimes. So I'll put something on the crock pot so it's ready when I get home. Set a timer. We have these amazing things called, I don't even remember what they're called, the steaming pots, Instant Pots.
Instant
But yeah, it's instant, and you can even set it on a timer. It can be cold when you put it in there. It can sit all day sealed, and then it starts at 5 p.m. and is ready by 5:30. And it's amazing.
And so
Yeah.
like,
Yeah, it is.
with my hours, when you do like 8
Yeah.
o'clock, I usually call my fast. Is that
At 8 p.m.
too late?
So it doesn't have to be, right? Because
You make the hours.
we're trying to do 16/8,
Okay,
right?
all right.
16/8, or 16 hours where we're fasting, then 8 hours where we're eating. That just means that your meals come between 12.
Got it, okay.
That's a little tougher, right? Because then you're
Yeah,
not
that's
getting
fair.
breakfast until later.
Yeah,
Yeah, the longer you work, the harder it is to do that before bedtime thing, because I do want you to get a good night's sleep as well. Probably something I should mention here is if you're not getting a good night's sleep, are you going to heal? No, that's when you heal. You need a good night's sleep. I would say everybody should be getting at least 7 hours of sleep. Does it have to come all at once? No, some people have to get 5 hours and then a 2-hour nap later, or 5 hours and then an hour and an hour. You have to make that time for sleep. Now, not everybody's hard and fast to that. I've met a few people that seem to thrive off of 5 hours. I don't know how. I am not that person. I will not even try to explain that person. I will not justify what that person is doing. Do not aim to be that person. That is asking for failure. Most of us, and really strong research on if you're not sleeping, you put yourself at risk for every one of these major diseases: heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, dementia, cancer. Please sleep. Please get some sleep in. So very, very important for healing the gut is doing that. Now, we do also have to add in some things, right? Our gut is full of bacteria. It's called our microbiome. We discovered this probably 10 years ago when we learned, hey, there's 10 times more bacteria inside of our bodies, 80% of which or more is actually in our gut. And so we need to feed these suckers and we need to replenish these suckers. Now, most of the time they'll stay replenished if you just eat some of these foods that have them in there, and you don't have to take a supplement. And then on top of that, you have to eat the foods that they like to eat. So we call those prebiotics, or in layman's terms, fiber, right? Honey is also a prebiotic food, raw honey, not the stuff you find in the honey bear. That's conventional. But yeah, you get some of these foods, and there's more than this, right? Culturally, you guys had way more in Vietnam than, we had. Yeah, oh, no, sorry. Malaysia, right, sorry. I've got other Vietnamese patients. Crisscross.
That's good food.
Yeah, good foods though, right? Yeah, Southeast Asia gets this right probably more than any other continent, right? Is it any wonder that, females from Japan outlive, just about anybody else in the world? No, they're getting these probiotic rich foods. They're eating seafood every day. They're getting exercise, doing all this stuff. They have strong culture. I mean, it's great. So eat probiotic rich food.
So sometimes I ferment my own vegetables, but I was out. So the other day I was at the store and I looked at the sauerkraut.
Yeah.
It was just no added sugar. I looked at the kimchi and I'm like, it had sugar. And it occurred to me, is the sugar there for the fermentation, or is it added sugar?
Sometimes.
Okay, so there's no way to know.
I would just look at the amount of sugar.
Okay.
So a good example would be kombucha. I love kombucha.
Yeah, I make
it's
my
a
own.
great drink.
Yeah.
You have to add sugar, right? There's not really an alternative.
Yeah.
And it is. It's the food for the probiotics or the mother.
Yeah.
What else? What
The
else do you call
SCOBY.
it? The SCOBY. SCOBY. I knew there was a term for it. Yeah, very important. But you need those things to feed it. And so what I'm looking for when I'm looking at kombucha in the store is I'm looking for something that has less than 6 grams of sugar in the bottle. Not the serving, right? Because some of those brands do that thing where they're like, yeah, it's half a bottle is the serving.
Yeah.
And then it's actually like you're getting 12 and it's not as good as the other stuff. So I'm looking for about 6 grams, and then I'm trying not to consume the whole thing in one sitting, even though I'm tempted to because it tastes really good. Yeah, but that's one of those things that you're looking for. So that probiotic, the prebiotic, get those in naturally. You don't have to worry about taking that. Now, some of us need to replenish it. We need to get more in. We need a concentrate dose. That's where the supplements come in. And that's where you do have to look at a broad spectrum probiotic to get there. So when you're looking at that, I would look for at least 16 billion parts. Is that what we're looking for when we're looking at those? Yeah, but then there's like, 5, 10, 11 different strains of probiotic in there as well. Just getting yogurt. If you just look at the standard yogurt on the shelf, what's it's going to say is in there?
Well, if it's flavored with fruit, it's sugar.
Yeah, no, but they'll list one of the or two of the strains of probiotic. You need a lot more than just that. If all you've ever eaten is yogurt, you do not have enough strains of probiotic in your diet to get there. If all you've ever eaten is, store-bought sauerkraut, right? It's not going to be enough that's in there. So we do need to look for those various strains. And even when you're buying probiotics, if you're dealing with leaky gut, buy one of my bottles, finish it, go to the refrigerated section at Natural Grocers or Whole Foods, get another bottle that has 15, 16 billion parts or whatever it is, with 10, 15 different strains, and then keep switching, come back to mine eventually until we get through everything and your function is back up there close to 100%. Hydrate. Yeah, I feel like this is almost a mindset thing, right? Because it's far easier for me to drink 15 cups of coffee a day than to get 64 fluid ounces of water a day. you know, and 64, you're still dehydrating yourself. You better weigh like 130 to only be drinking 64 ounces of water. Yeah. Well, and a gallon might be too much for some people, right? That's 128. So what I say is roughly half your body weight in ounces. So if you weigh, was it 128 in a gallon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 129.
128. Yeah, so you better weigh 156 or 256 pounds to be drinking a gallon of water a day. You won't drown yourself.
Or be
Yeah.
highly exercising.
Yeah, burning through a lot.
Relax.
You won't drown yourself with a gallon of water a day.
Yeah.
But someone who's shorter than me, right, probably lighter than me, should not be drinking as much water as I am. You know, just basically. Yeah, it's half your body weight in ounces of water, plus any additional activity that you're having. If you feel thirsty, you're not drinking enough water. If you're urinating and it comes out neon, you're probably not drinking enough water. If you're drinking so much water that your urine turns clear, like no color at all, that's too much water. Yeah, now you're over, like there's not enough, I mean, we're talking like principles of chemistry here, but basically there's too much or not enough concentration of those antioxidants and nutrients in that urinary stream to actually make it beneficial for you. So there's a fine balance there. You don't have to get super technical about it. I mean, most of us are chronically dehydrated anyways, because we would rather drink soda or tea or coffee or all these things. So do make sure that on top of, especially, basically consider a caffeinated beverage a net zero because of the way that it pushes fluids through you. You know, a flavored beverage cut in half for the amount of ounces that it provides for you as far as hydration. But then, you know, water, just get that baseline of half your body weight in ounces every single day. And if you want to crush a gallon because it's doing great for you, don't let me talk you out of it.
Well, you shoot high.
Yeah, shoot high, right? Yeah, but I mean, it is good. And that's a good principle. If you have a container that has the amount of water that you should drink in it, it's easy to look at it at the end of the day and say, I did a great job.
Yeah.
Or I need to work really hard, really fast, right? And make sure it's water and not vodka, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, or some days maybe you do need vodka. I didn't say that.
Yeah, that's a clear lick.
Yeah. So some people need a little bit more help in this process, and that's where the supplementation comes in. Like I said, with the probiotics, add those in when you've taken the antibiotics, when you haven't replenished the gut because your diet's not diverse enough. Add those in. But then we have the gut renew powder and the gut renew capsules. When I was looking at the gut health protocol today, I was like, these are advanced options. These are for people that really need that gut healing. And if you really need that gut healing, go ahead and throw those in and finish it. See how your gut's doing. Have we decreased some of the bloating? Have we decreased some of the, you know, digestive symptoms at all? Are we starting to creep back up that chart? And let's see if we're ready to graduate from the advanced level down to the intermediate level, or from the intermediate level down to the basic level. And the basic level is basically just, you know, do your regular supplements, do your regular whole food diet, make sure it's balanced and going across everything. But we do need to detox. And that's, you know, fasting, the bone broth cleanse, like I was talking about, it is a detox. You do push things through, right? When all you drink is bone broth, does your stool get a little softer? Yeah, a lot softer. Yeah, really fast. It does. And a lot of that is just getting in there and cleaning it out. Some people need a little bit more advanced detox. People go in for coffee enemas or just enemas in general, kind of push things up the other direction, just because when you're looking at this tube, it's not a smooth tube. There's all sorts of wrinkles and bends and curves in it, and just sending things through one direction all the time doesn't always get everything out that needs to get out. Some stuff gets compacted in there, especially if you've been eating really badly. You know, if there's a wound process building up there, what do you get? You get a scab. When scabs first form, they're a little bit sticky and stuff. It sticks to it. And so sometimes you do need a little bit more. And so there are other detox protocols in there. And so one thing I like about our detox system is it's not in and of itself a cleanse. You know, what this is it's very gentle. First off, it's aimed at giving the liver and kidneys what they need, and the digestive system as well, to actually push things through and clean it out on its own. We're not forcing it like an enema would do. You know, enemas are for people that are really, really, really big. we don't have to do something like that. I'm not going to oversee something like that. That's not my scope, right? But you take something like activated charcoal, which is in the daily detox supplement. What does activated charcoal do? If you go to the hospital with a toxic exposure, right? It binds to the stuff. It helps to flush things through, right?
Neutralizes it.
Yeah, it neutralizes it as well. And you will have a very good bowel movement afterwards. Yeah, it gets
Or
it
you'll
up.
throw it
Oh,
out.
or you'll throw it up. Either way. So this is a very, very small dose, like think capsule size with a few things in there as well, like dandelion root and fibers and things that just really help to bind to stuff and flush it out. But it's a two-part system. One to do first thing in the morning and one to do at night. And I like to do this 3 or 4 times a year. Just finish both bottles. And if it takes me 3 months to finish it, it takes me 3 months to finish it, because sometimes I'm really bad at taking my own supplements. Sometimes I'm really good at it, and I just crank through them and overdo it sometimes. But 3 or 4 times a year, I'll pick this up and I'll just go through it just to help my digestive system. Yes. Are you going to notice any symptoms with it? Yeah, you'll get more regular. In fact, some of my patients, when they do start getting the runs, I'll actually have them take it in reverse, because it actually helps to slow things down a little bit, taking it opposite the way we have it recommended on the package. Not as a treatment, right? Because we still have to identify what's irritating the gut. But if you're dehydrating yourself because it's running through you too fast, sometimes we do need to stop it up. Yeah, and that's what emergency medicine is for, is stopping it up when it's starting to threaten your health. And then obviously chiropractic plays a huge role in this. So even if the subluxations in your spine are simply a toxicity reaction, Wolff's Law is still at play. And Wolff's Law states that anytime the spine misaligns, or any joint for that matter, misaligns, it degenerates at a rate of 7% per year. And so if my vagus nerve got off because I've got leaky gut and my spine distorted because of that, and all I do is detox and heal my leaky gut, or try to heal my leaky gut, but vagus nerve still has interference in it because of the toxicity that happened because of the leaky gut, that cycle can't fully break, can it? Because the healing process is interfered with. And that's where we have to combine chiropractic with all this. Chiropractic is the backbone. Literally, sorry, I'm not trying to make a joke, but it just, I'm a dad. It comes out naturally. That's why chiropractic is the foundation of all this. We have to have a healthy nervous system. We have to recognize that the first thing that's going to interfere with healing is an attack or an insult to the central nervous system. And where aren't you going to get that checked? In anything that's medical, anything that's addressing just symptoms, right? Because you can go to a naturopath or a homeopath and they can think this way and they can still treat you from a symptom perspective. Is there a time and place for that? Absolutely. But we have to go back to, right, philosophy. We have to go back to that roadmap, that guidebook, to get us to where we want to go. And so we do have to go to that foundation. We have to remove that subluxation first, remove that interference to the central nervous system. And can we do detox at the same time? Absolutely. Your body can do multiple things at a time, right? Anybody here have your heartbeat and take a breath at the same time? Yeah. Sure. Plus chewing gum and talking, right? Yeah, our kids, they chew with they talk with their mouths open while chewing food all the time. That's how, our laundry bills get so high. Yeah. And just for those people that are watching, what are some warning signs of subluxation? Yeah, these are just the most common things that we see. We see headaches, we see menstrual problems, reproductive issues, high blood pressure, depression, numbness, tingling, sciatica, neck pain or low back pain, neck pain, dizziness, fatigue, acid reflux, food intolerances, allergies and asthma, ear infections, frequent colds, constipation, attention or focus problems, sleep problems, eczema or skin rashes, and that's just a start. Anybody had any of those things clear up because we got you adjusted?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Now, was the adjustment enough to get you all the way healthy? It's just, again, it's steps in the right direction. It's the foundation, right? We cut all the nerves going to the stomach. It doesn't matter what diet we're doing. But if we ignore the stomach in the process, we don't do the right diet, we don't put the right foods into our system, we can get adjusted all we want. We still eat McDonald's every day, 3 times a day. Probably going to get a little fat. Fat, greasy food equals fat, greasy dude. So we need to make sure that we're healthy across the board. And then our mindset, obviously, is probably the most important thing with all this. This is what I always start with. Stress is just killing us. When it comes to stress, it can be toxic, but it can also increase our toxic overload. How so? How so, Dr. Jake? What does stress do to your sympathetic parasympathetic balance?
Sends it towards sympathetic.
Yeah, sympathetic, which inhibits the gut,
digestion.
which makes it more prone to leaky gut and insult and injury.
It throws off your serotonin levels, which
Yeah, you can get, hormonal imbalance, which can also be toxic. I mean, you just add up stress. Yeah, so
mhm.
anybody a little frustrated with the political process right now? Anybody internalizing some of that stress?
Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's impossible not to completely. Like, we're imperfect beings. But at this point, can any of us actually do anything to affect the outcome? Like, actually.
No.
No, we can pray, right? Right?
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah, absolutely. When we worry about things that we cannot control anymore,
Yeah.
that's basically taking off of God what's his responsibility and putting that onto our shoulders. But when we pray instead of worrying, we're taking that off of our shoulders and putting it on God. And that's the healthy way to do it. That's the way that takes us from the sympathetic back into a healthy balance with the parasympathetic and releases that stress. So, do not worry.
Yes.
And do not worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow has enough worries of its own.
365 times
Yeah.
he tells us not to worry.
Yep.
Not to worry.
One for each day.
Do the flowers worry? Do the birds worry? No.
Gives
They just
us all
take
the examples.
one day at a time. And yes, we're humans, we have a little bit more prefrontal cortex power. We can plan ahead. Anybody plan some special things for 2020? That didn't happen?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot more parents ended up homeschooling. Maybe not completely, but more so than they thought they would. Yeah, some people were planning on homeschooling and just snowballed right into it. But yeah, it's, we can't predict tomorrow. And if you can, talk to me afterwards. I think I've got a few investment opportunities that we should talk about. But yeah, no, we can't. We can't. And we shouldn't try. Yeah, it doesn't mean we shouldn't plan ahead, right? People that planned ahead, that were more prepared for what was coming, did better through this crisis than anybody else. But also not worrying about it.
Yes.
Not worrying about it. Oxygen, exercise. And really, when we're talking about toxicity, it does have a lot to do with oxygen, but it also has a lot to do with sweating in particular. And, I hope this doesn't sound like an infomercial for Hot Works every single week. But, several of us have gone and we actually, love the fact that it is so hot because of how much more sweat we get out in that process. It's not just to the fitness, but it does. It releases toxins through the sweat pores, especially the stuff that's closest to the skin, right? If your body's pushing away from vital organs, yeah, you need your skin, but you're not relying on that on a day-to-day basis to stay toxic free. No, your body pushes it out that way and you need to sweat. Not sweating is a sign of too much toxicity. And so if we're not sweating, if we're not able to sweat when we're doing a workout or building up that high heart rate, that actually creates issues as well. And so exercise also does what to your digestive process? Stimulates it. I used to have huge bowel movements after my workouts. Now I have all my bowel movements first thing in the morning. I'm regular, on a clock. So I don't have anything left to push out after exercise. But it used to be, because I wasn't so regular that it was the exercise that would just oh, nope, it's all there, time to go. And basketball practice in high school, I'd be doing my lap just to start the warm up and oh, I am jogging over to the bathroom now. It's time to go.
That's funny.
Jake, where are you going? Bathroom. Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. It's good though, because we need to get that out. And if your exercise is stimulating that digestion, if it's stimulating that bowel movement, that's a good sign that, we had some left in there that we weren't able to get out on our own, that we did just need a little bit more help for. Now, should we exercise because we feel like we need to poop more? No, that's not a good reason. But if you exercise and you poop more, that's a natural occurrence, the natural thing that happens. So definitely a nice benefit. So we're gonna really dive into fitness next week. Next week is the fitness plan. And I'm gonna be talking about fitness as it relates to the immune system. We're gonna dive as deep into this as we want, but this is also week 6 coming up.
Yeah.
You guys, the ones of you that are sitting here, and several of you that are watching online, joined us for every single week. And so we're actually gonna have a little graduation ceremony. And you guys are the Wellness Warrior Club. And so you're gonna get a little bit of recognition for that as well. We couldn't do this without you. In fact, standing up and talking to an empty room is not my idea of a good time, believe it or not. Anybody watch any of my webinars back when we didn't think we should have people in a group setting because we didn't know what COVID was or what it was doing? Yeah, no, not fun for me. I like this way more to have you guys here and to enjoy this. So as always, you guys get a little bit of a discount here tonight. We are still trying to clear out stock. If you guys are owed some product because you included in a care plan, let me know. We'll make sure we get that ordered. But everything is 20% off. Plus, you guys get an additional 5% off if you feel like you need anything. We are running low on some stuff. If it is out, you can order it off of the website. And if you get it on auto ship, it's just an automatic 5% discount, and they ship it direct to your house. So either way, they're shipping it direct to your house. You don't have to wait for me to get it and hand it to you when you come for your next appointment. So it is a slightly more efficient way to get your supplements as well. But I do want to open it up for questions if you guys had anything for me. I know sometimes there's usually a really good one or 2 or 7. Did we cover it?
That didn't sound good.
No, I don't know what that is actually.
Don't call him back.
No, I know it's our camera.
Oh,
That's why I was like, what is going on?
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
I'm gonna have to look into that.
yeah, absolutely. So I'll let you guys go so you can look into cameras and stuff.
Sorry.
Yeah, next week, Monday, 6:30 p.m. We'll be finishing this up. Thanks for coming out again, guys.
Thank you.
Oh, gosh.
Oh, it's really like, I'm gonna kill you.
Okay, no, that's not